Welcome to the Craig and Greg Show, presented by Maximize Leadership. Now, here are Craig Owens and Greg Harris.
Hey, welcome back to the Craig and Greg Show. I'm Craig. This is Greg. We're always excited to be back with you. Can I do that beginning again?
You can try.
I'll start again.
Do it again.
Actually, you know, one of the things that Greg's really good at and a huge blessing to me is when we're on the golf course. He gives me a whole lot of these little things called mulligans, do-overs, you know. And we were talking about in leadership, that's a really nice thing to be able to give somebody, but I don't think we can just like hand them out like confetti to everybody all the time, every situation, but not at least not as many mulligans as you give me. How many times do you think I end up actually swinging the club in the?
It's a big workout.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, and unfortunately, it's one way. It's turning one way.
I know.
We got to do it the other way. Then the mulligan really is helping you.
Absolutely. Yeah, but let's talk about that. So if I'm out there and I didn't hit my best shot, or your teammate didn't, nail it straight and true and you say, "Hey, that's okay. I'm gonna let you try that again." Can we just do that all of the time, or how do we do that?
Well, I think mulligans in general is gracious as a leader to say, "Hey, I know that wasn't the outcome you wanted." Mm-hmm. That's really what it comes down to.
Right.
A golf shot, same way. But there's one thing that we do when we play golf and do that is I say, "Hey, maybe move the ball back in your stance."
Yes.
So you don't top the ball, try a mulligan. And I think that's where leaders have a chance to coach. Here's our plug for coaching. I think the coaching part is, hey, in that meeting, you said it this way. I know one person, she didn't feel very included or whatever. Maybe the next time we have that meeting, maybe coach it this way. Oh, that makes so sense. I get it.
Yes.
That's where I think mulligans with maybe an adaptation, a tweak,
yes,
an adjustment.
Yeah, I love that, because otherwise, if you just do it exactly the same way, you probably shouldn't expect to have a better outcome. In fact, it's probably worse. If I don't get that coaching from you in between, I'm going to be more nervous approaching my mulligan. Maybe I'm going to try too hard.
Yeah.
And now I've gone outside of my strength zone, outside of where I've been trained for something. So I think that kind of like, okay, just relax. Don't get upset about this, but let me just give you a thought, and then you can try it again.
I think that's the goal of mulligans. It's not to score better.
Yes.
It's to be better.
Yes. Good word. Yep.
So I think in leadership and relationships, we can even do that with family members or close friends, where you have access to them or they have access to you. I mean, hey, Greg, you should try that again. Really? What was wrong? Well, she just left crying in the meeting because you didn't let her report her division's update. I didn't even see it on the agenda. I am so sorry. I'm going to go talk to her first, and that's the mulligan, right? Yep. But I'm going to also redo it to give her a chance to share what her report was or how her division's doing. Yep. I think the same thing in golf, in your example. The golf, unfortunately, it shows the results quick. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, he dubbed that one again. Maybe try a different grip.
Sure.
We're in leadership, we're in business. You don't necessarily see where the ball goes, but you can see people rally. One word I like is an olive branch.
Sure.
But the mulligan is sort of that, like you give it to someone, hey, try again, And I think that's how we develop leaders.
Yep. Now, what would you do as a leader? How would you handle this? Now, on the golf course, mulligans don't really cost you anything. If you just say, go ahead, maybe it costs you a couple more minutes of your time or something.
Yeah.
But
or an expensive golf ball.
Yeah. Oh man, that ball.
That was
first go in the water and get that ball out of there, and then you can hit another one. But in business, let's say that it's my first kind of like, you're letting me take a lead on a sales call, and I blew it. And we don't get that, we didn't land that sale. Or maybe it was worse. Maybe it was an existing customer, and because I kind of duffed it, they ended up leaving. It's costing the business something. Mm-hmm. Where do you fit that mulligan in there? Do you say, hey, look at this is, I'm going to give you one more chance, because now you have that threat hanging over them. Are they really going to be relaxed and at their best the next time? How do you handle it where it's cost you something?
I think that varies by application. Like losing an opportunity maybe doesn't have a dollar value. Making a mistake with a client has a dollar value, right? It could be the same for handling people if you run a school or a church. People left the school or left the church. There's a cost to it, right? I think the cost part I really don't focus on. I haven't anyway. Others may find that to be helpful. Most people know it was costly.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So if you do a sales call, and what I enjoy doing with a group is you make a sales call, then you regroup on the ride back.
Yes.
How'd it go? What would you do different? Did you notice anything? Should we follow up in a note to the client or prospect or collaboration or whatever? And I think that's helpful. We like pets. You got a beautiful dog, and Harrison got a beautiful dog, but you can't rub their nose in the poop in the house all the time. Sometimes it doesn't register. Like, why did he do that? That was yesterday, know.
Yep.
And so keeping score, I think, with mulligans is a big one to be careful of. As a leader, I've had to do that.
Right. I don't think it helps when you pull out your list and go, all right, this is the 7th time that you've messed up, and that doesn't help either.
I mean, for a lot of folks, they want to run far from their mistake.
Sure.
But I think that's where the coach can develop a relationship where they actually listen and don't tune you out.
Right.
Like, well, he brought this up before, but there's no consequences. Yes, there are consequences, but I don't want it to be the heavy part.
Right.
Right. It needs to be a chance for learning. And I think that's where mulligans, that's what I associate mulligans with, learning opportunities.
Sure. Absolutely. Now, you're so prolific in all the stuff that you write and record and everything. So I'm not sure. I know this was from you, but I don't remember where I saw it. But you talked about in free throws, when a basketball player gets fouled and goes to the line and they get 2 free throws, what's the difference in shooting percentage between the first free throw and the second free throw?
You want to guess? Or
I remember you sharing that number, and it was definitely it was noticeable, but
it's about 12 or 14%.
Yeah.
So there's better. There's an adjustment to that second free throw. My dad and I golf every week, and we've got good stories to tell, some stories we can't tell. But one would be like, hey, on the first green, I don't know how fast they are. Put 2 balls down, practice, because practice greens are different than the course greens, unfortunately. Yep. But so sounds like we play a lot of golf, doesn't it? Anyway, he would hit his first one and hit his second one, and I mean, it's almost 100%, where his second one is so close or in. And I'm like, so you're making adjustments without a mulligan, but yet the second ball was a mulligan, right? So you got to know how fast the greens are. Does it move one way? Is it bent grass? Is it, Kentucky bluegrass, or, the horse or deer ride by? But I think the challenge for us, as leaders is give them a mulligan, let it play out, let them make the adjustments. And that's really the chance. Hey, I saw you made a good adjustment there. Mm-hmm. And that's good coaching feedback. But the free throw is about 12 to 14%. So let's say, it's a 70% first chance. Now, not Shaq or those other guys that couldn't shoot very well. Who was the other one? Was Ben Wallace bad?
Yeah.
For the Pistons was bad. Dwight Howard was bad. We're talking your first free throw is 54%, just throw it up there and walk away.
Right.
But the next one, no matter who it is,
it's better.
Yeah, it's better. And I love it when an announcer, I don't listen to him too very much, but I love when an announcer goes, well, I hope I don't jinx him, but I think he's going to make the second free throw, and, oh my gosh, he missed the second one, But adjustments are key. And that's part of us in leadership, right? You were a great leader growing up. You had good role models. But as time went on, you became a different great leader.
Sure, yeah.
With adjustments.
Yep, absolutely.
And then you apply it differently to your settings. So
Right.
let me give an example of that.
Well, so viewers, the reason why I wanted to ask Greg that question and share that statistic with you is because I don't want you to hold your breath where, oh man, I'm giving them a second chance and what's going to happen. Statistically, and we the numbers are on the side of making this claim that if you give them a second chance with the ability to tweak something in there, it's really very likely that second chance is going to be much better. And so that's why I think that I kind of made that joke at the beginning. Well, you don't want to just throw them around like crazy. Why wouldn't you? I think as long as there's you don't just give them hit another one, take another shot, do another meeting,
right.
And without any coaching, that one you might be just kind of wasting it. But if there's the opportunity to, all right, put your hand over here, or put the ball down here, or realize that in this meeting, because it's later in the afternoon, or with this group, because of when you give that little tweak, you should expect it to be better the second time. So go ahead and do the mulligan.
I think to add something, and you've got an example with camp, I'm sure, but safe environment with a mulligan and some adapting, is, hey, and I didn't have a problem bringing it up. I know last meeting, so-and-so, kind of shut the door on us. Here's some feedback we all shared. Hey, the next time we go out, let's lead with that example.
Yep.
So it's a safe environment to make another mistake. So we tweak that, but then this went left. And so I think it's important to announce a safe environment,
sure,
and then to carry it out.
Yes. Well, and we talked about that. We had an episode where we talked about the creating that safe environment where people they don't feel like they're walking around on eggshells or feel like, oh man, I better not, they're like, well, this is my job description. I better not stray this far off of there because then I'm going to get in trouble if I do something wrong. Mm-hmm. But create that environment where mistakes are proof that you're working hard and that you're innovating and you're trying new things.
The part that is difficult in our analogies is in leadership, relationship, building your business, taking care of people, customers, etc. We don't really get to see that golf outcome. It's soft tissue measurements,
yes,
versus the free throw. He clanged both off the rim. He's horrible at it. It's
right.
quite obvious. It's and sometimes I think with us in leadership or us with leaders, really, really critical to know where we came from, know that we're going to make some mistakes, and we're still trying to get to the finish line. Mm-hmm. We're not trying to catch someone. Right. Oh, you held the club wrong. Well, you told me afterwards.
Right. Yeah.
So I think safe environment's really big, in my opinion. I just love second chances. I mean, God does that.
Yeah. Comeback stories. They're great.
Well, even like the Olympics, like we've kind of moved on from some professional sports for obvious reasons for us, but Olympics or, like college where it's still,
yes,
relatively innocent, but I mean, the humanitarian story is
yes.
So he blew out his shoulder and he's still tossing the javelin in the next Olympics.
Yeah.
I love those stories, and who doesn't?
Absolutely.
And I think those are things that we as leaders and coaches, as we develop people, they're fun stories. Well, they'll come back. Thanks for giving me a mulligan, Craig. I know it's my third one, but I kind of hit it out of the park, didn't I?
Yeah. And then you're like, yes, you did.
You did, buddy. And
let's celebrate.
And you give the high five.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's so exciting for people to know, he actually walked it out.
Yep.
He did what he said he was going to do, and I feel reclaimed and revived, and yep. I think it's hard for us leaders to know that, in terms of relational. A golf shot, you can see, oh, Craig, the club face came through perfect. You lifted it, there's your divot, and it's on the green. That's easy to see.
Yep.
Not always easy to do. But I think with people skills, it's harder.
Well, and I love that you said people, because we're not trying to, if our focus is just on the bottom line, just making money, we're going to treat people like things and we'll just get rid of them. But when we say, hey, this person on my team, these people that are part of my team are my most appreciable asset, and I want to see them develop, then you're going to give them mulligans.
Yeah.
And I love in our notes when we were kind of sharing some thoughts, you found a phobia that I have not seen before.
I haven't either.
But share that, because this is perfect.
Well, I do know it's a big issue, you know, so a lot of folks will get all caught up in, it's got to be perfect.
Yeah.
I just can't open my mouth in this meeting because if I don't say it right, they'll just think I'm a dunce, you know, and throw me to the wolves, you know. Yeah. And so this atelophobia is the fear of imperfection.
Yep.
Craig, we're all imperfect.
Absolutely. I know.
You know, as I'm thinking to myself, well, leaders, let's get off our duff and do this, because people are worried about being imperfect. The whole table, if we have 10 people there, everyone has flaws.
Yep.
I've been around people who didn't want to admit they had a flaw, and so they were a little full of themselves to be around, but eventually they made enough mistakes to say, yeah, I'm kind of like you all. No, we knew you were, you just didn't want to admit it. But the atelophobia is really kind of an interesting one. So imperfections, I mean, you've got when someone records a song, when they change the
the auto tuning.
Auto tuning, you know, a couple of famous people have said, you know, auto tuning, that's how I sound good. Well, so you sound about as good as I do on my back deck singing to the, you know, nature, unless you use auto tunes. Wow, I want your money.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I think, you know, auto tune to be one thing. I do know, like a photo changing. Yeah. You're like, okay, so, you know, silly ones would be, boy, he looks great. I just saw him though last month. He had crow's feet. He doesn't in that picture. Right. So I think that's what we have to be careful of, is trying to be like fake perfect.
Yep. Well, and I think as more experienced leaders, what do we have to remind ourselves of, and our younger teammates, is I used to be there, you know, because they'll sometimes look at, well, I'm going to mess up, and you never seem to mess up. Well, it's just because you weren't around before when I did mess up all the time. I've been doing this for a while. So I've tried to learn from those mistakes, and that's why I'm giving you the mulligan, because I believe in you, and I want you to learn from your mistakes either. I don't want you to feel like the mistakes are fatal and that's the end. I want you to be able to learn from them. And I think we have to remind people, well, that's, if it looks like I'm approaching perfection, I'm not there, but if it looks like, you know, well, you hardly ever make a mistake. Yeah, but you're looking at me now, and look at all the years and years of experience that I had of making mistakes to be able to get to this spot.
I think the whole making mistakes, if we give, I mean, we don't want a mistake-prone organization. Right. But I think the lessons out of mistakes need to be the organization. Like, hey, that didn't work well. We learned, we tweaked our proposal, or we tweaked who was going to present what, or how to say it, or we tweaked it by asking them questions versus assuming the answers. And wow, it just moves the organization. It moves your team. It moves the client, your customer, your patient, whatever they are. I just think it's important for us, you know, to be willing to give mulligans with some coaching, you know, like tweak the hand grip or the follow through, whatever. I think high-performing people, sales, leaders, whatever, they're going to make mistakes, but I don't know which episode it was, but, you know, I've said I could probably write one book, you know, on things that I did right, you know, like, hey, that's what I was expecting, and that's what happened. Yeah. I could write a trilogy on the things that didn't, but that's not what they're looking at. No. You know, I've heard this, you have heard this. You just make it look easy. Well, I have had a few mulligans in my life. Yeah. And I think that's important for us to be able to say humbly as leaders, yes, I'm not expecting you to make mistakes forever, and not this costly a one. Right. But I expect you to trip, fall, but God darn it, get back up with us.
Absolutely.
And I think that's encouraging versus someone who has to have it just perfect in the meeting. And then you're like, yeah, she hasn't said anything. Yeah, she's waiting for it to be perfect. Well, it won't be.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead and share that. Well, listen, you know, we've talked a lot about our coaching services, and what you might need coaching in is helping to coach your teammates through their mulligans. That is a special skill set to be able to identify what needs to be tweaked and the best way to present that. And that is something that we could do in our coaching time with you as well. Or maybe you say, hey, I've kind of fumbled a little bit here. I need some mulligans, and we could be a sounding board for you. We could be a coach for you to help you with that. So all you need to do is go to maximizeleadership.com. There is a page on there about our coaching, and down below you can just fill out the form. It's just sort of a blank form. Put in your name and your contact info, describe a little bit about what you're looking for, and we'll be very honest. We'll look through it and we'll get back to you and say, yeah, we'd love to help you out with that, or we'd say that's not really in our skill set, but here's somebody else maybe that you could talk to. So it's absolutely no obligation to you to fill that out. And you never know what we might be able to do to help you help the other people on your team. That's why we have these episodes as well. We love your feedback. Thanks for the comments that you've left on these videos. You can also reach out to us on Twitter at Maximize Podcast. Why don't you give us some ideas of some episodes that or some topics that you'd like us to talk about? That's what we love doing here, is kind of sharing the general principles. And then when we get together with you for coaching, we can get very specific to your situation. So we're here as a resource for you. We want you to be the best leaders that you can be. So make sure you subscribe, click the bell so you're notified. We share some shorter clips throughout the month as well, not just our big episodes, and we want you to catch all of those things as they come out. So stay tuned. We got more great content coming up for you.
Get in touch with Craig and Greg through Twitter at Maximize Podcast or at MaximizeLeadership.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes of The Craig and Greg Show.